So I think first of all, and I was speaking to two fronts, creative industry generally, but film in particular, like any other industry, you any intervention should start with understanding the ecosystem, right? And with that zoom in to the ecosystem, then you begin to understand gaps that might be there within a value chain, right? So creative industry is no exception. If I were to use film as an example, right now, and I think I'm qualifying myself to comment on that because we are one of the few countries few companies with Joe Vision Production in the country that found a way to monetize the process, right? The majority of filmmakers for the longest time, the goal was to make a film, let alone without really paying too much attention to what's the process from the concept to producing a film, and where does it end up, who's the off-taker of this film. So that process, right? So therefore I think the ideal intervention for us is to understand, okay, so what is already there? Where are the gaps? How can they be addressed? What would be the best way to address it in the most sustainable manner? Yeah. So without that, our concern would then be like, is this just going to be one of those things spoken about up there, but it doesn't really have a trickle down effect on the ground. Concretely, creative industry in the moment, film in particular, is that we are struggling with the infrastructure. If we're talking about Film City, is what problem concretely is it solving? Is it the infrastructure problem? If it is, then what would be nice is really to see where are the different businesses are and how this infrastructure speaks to that in a sustainable manner. Second challenge, which we're hoping with the understanding of the ecosystem that need to be addressed, is the question around skill. Third is a question around marketing, or access to the market rather. When we produced 2021, we produced a movie which the budget was over 100 million. The local spend, it was an international film, by the way, and it was shot entirely in Namibia, and we were the executive producer of that. The local spend in the end was less than 45 million. So which means the rest of the money left the country. How did it leave the country? It left the country because we had to import pretty much all the infrastructure needed, right? But those are very specific infrastructure. And then majority of the skill sets that we needed, because it's a very specialized story, also had to be brought in. And then when the film is done, now it's hundreds of millions went into that film. You need to find we need a market. So we have to find a market somewhere else. So any intervention that I think transformative for us have to speak to some of these key, and we'll be happy to share this data because we do have these data. But if we are not, in all fairness, I think there are some effort made to reach out, maybe not to the point where let's travel to America or let's do whatever, but there was some effort made to reach out to us, okay, share some information from distance. But without really spending time to understand the ecosystem, either we come up with interventions that are not sustainable, that are outdated, or far passing the people that we are hoping to assist in that process.
Yeah. Tell me about what we just saw in the beginning there. The video was taken at your
Creative Industry Institute.
Yes. What is that?
So you introduced me as a creative entrepreneur from the film production company Joe Vision Production, but we work closely with the Creative Industry Institute Africa, and that is an entity which was established pretty much to collect data and to help us understand the creative ecosystem. And in fact, as a matter of fact, it was because of that we begin to understand where skills are, where the gaps are, and how they can be addressed. The place that you've seen there is a physical space where we're trying to address different gaps in the creative ecosystem. For instance, if people are shooting films, they can rent production office there. You basically just come everything set up. We're going to launch in partnership with Namibia Film Commission soon what we call a prop and costume warehouse. Basically, this is the infrastructure we're talking about. Millions went into establishing that. At the same place also, there's a lot of investment on a film logistic, because when you're shooting a film, people have to understand, even just a scene of, I don't know, scene setting in the kitchen. People need to, there has to be seats, the kitchen had to be built, they had to be set up, all this kind of stuff. You need this infrastructure. If now we talk about leadership, if we have to make a film about, let's say, Hendrik Witbooi, we have to recreate this world. What Hendrik Witbooi used to wear at the time, what horse did he rode, what was the bandana, or the special hat, all these details. And all this thing, if you look at it, speaks to employment. It speaks to job creation. But the challenge is, especially within the context of culture and history, we also need to know who are the keeper of that knowledge, so that we can bring him in the space. So creative industry now is the space where that provides us infrastructure. It also provides the network for keepers of knowledge and the digital innovation to come together to work, and also provide and produce infrastructure that can help Namibians to tell the stories. So that is what creative industry is doing in the moment. And also encouraging collaboration with other countries, both in the region and internationally. This week, for instance, there's a lot of activities happening because it's the Berlin-Windhoek partnership, and there's a lot of discussion around films, around creative in general at the space.
Yeah, wonderful.
Tourismus ist eine Fernsehsendung, die verschiedene Reiseziele vorstellt und den Zuschauerinnen und Zuschauern umfassende Einblicke in Orte, Veranstaltungen und Erlebnisse bietet. Die Sendung liefert detaillierte Informationen zu Zielen, kulturellen Höhepunkten und Reisetipps, um sowohl lokale als auch internationale Zuschauerinnen und Zuschauer anzusprechen.
To get certified for the national standards, definitely, because there are auditors. I don't know of Namibia, but in South Africa there are auditors that there are institutions that are able to audit your systems and provide you with ISO certifications to say you comply with ISO standards fully.
Okay, on another tack, Robert, I'd just like you to expand a little bit for us about the role of archives and record keeping in terms of good governance, in terms of transparency and anti-corruption.
Yeah. Now, when I started earlier in my introduction, I mentioned that one of or few of the pillars that records and archives management is premised on is good governance, good governance, transparency, and accountability.
Yeah.
So good governance, how? Good governance, records management. When you have good records management practices in place,
yeah,
corruption is reduced. How is corruption reduced? For example, I'll give you a practical example now of workings in registries and how, or workings in institutions. For example, a document comes in the institution, or a record comes in. Now, when a record comes into the institution, number one, it is very important to understand by law that any transaction or any documentation that is produced of a transaction within a state or a public entity, it is never your personal record. Okay. It is never the personal record of an individual that produces it. So when you produce records during the function of your work or during your course of work, it is not your personal record. It is, these records belong to the state. That is one. And number one, these government institutions are mandated to have registries in terms of the Archives Act and the registry manuals that are created thereof. Yeah. Every public institution must have a registry that acts as a repository for current and semi-current records. So those records that you are using, when a record comes, it is registered into a register book and it is recorded, it is recorded into a register, incoming register, and it is filed, and then to whom the document is addressed to is then informed. Yeah. You understand? So that person comes and they work on the document, they do whatever they do, they bring it back to the registry. Yeah. So this documentation is supposed to be at the central point, and anyone in the institution at the level, if they are allowed to access it, because I mean, if I'm not an executive member, I'm not allowed to access board minutes, for example. Yes, yes. But if you are able, or if you're an executive member, you can access board minutes, you can request for them because you are privy to these meetings. But bottom line of the story is records management ensures that records are available at the central point. Yes, yes. They are available in a very short space of time, and they are organized because you are a records officer. Records must be organized so that you are able to provide them in a very, very, very quick time. Yeah. whether you digitize and scan, whether you scan and email the copy or you deliver hard copy,
Yeah.
it is very important that you provide it at the right time. How do these practices not encourage corruption? Because documents are accessible.
Yes,
You
yes,
know?
I see.
Corruption thrives where there is secrecy, where
Yes.
documents are locked up in cabinet, or where somebody tells you, those are my record.
Yeah.
Those are my record. No, the person is on leave. Records are locked up. It's a whole week. No work is going on.
Yes,
Do
yes.
you understand?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, things like that.
But Mr. Ngololo, what about when the records don't exist? Let's first start with the legal framework in such a situation. For
Yeah.
instance, we've heard of many state-owned enterprises that have no record of their assets.
Yeah, definitely.
Is anybody liable?
Yeah, now that is a very, 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 very important question, Mr. Craig. In instances like that, the Archives Act in the state it is now, it is good because it encourages, it is the custodian of public records. It encourages or it mandates institutions, public institutions, to have an approved file plan, for example.
Yeah.
They must file according to the file plan, for example. They must dispose according to the file plan, for example. But as it is now, the Archives Act in its current state, it cannot enforce. It cannot hold an institution accountable that is not complying or that does not have a file plan. So many public institutions do not have an approved file plan. They are operating business as usual. There's nothing happening to them. Nobody, I almost said nobody cares.
Yeah,
Same applies to information governance.
yeah.
Did you know that you are not supposed to dispose of state financial records without treasury approval?
I did not know that.
You did not know that. But
Yeah.
every public institution, should you wish to dispose of financial records, you know, receipt books, what have you, if you want to dispose. Most public institutions only know this for auction, when they are auctioning stuff. They go to treasury and then they get approval and then they come, they conduct their auctions. But also state financial records in terms of treasury and also the archives, treasury, in terms of treasury, the treasury rules. You are not supposed to dispose of state financial records without approval, number one, from the National Archives. In fact, the National Archive refers your request to distract financial records to Treasury. Treasury then approves your request to distract financial records.
Tourism is a TV show that explores various touristic destinations, providing viewers with in-depth coverage of locations, events, and experiences. The show presents detailed insights into destinations, cultural highlights, and travel tips to engage both local and international audiences.
I don't have the in-depth details of that sort of arrangement. However, how payment systems, or at least payroll deduction management systems, work is that the HR department or payroll department would contract a service provider to help manage employee deductions and affordability check and stuff. Obviously, with the idea of financial inclusion and sort of managing, how do I say, all these transactions in a way that is safe, transparent, and protects both the institution's integrity and also the employee's integrity. Now, with the payroll deduction system, many of the financial institutions sort of get a what they call a deduction code. So they have to apply, so the financial institutions would apply to government, for example, for a deduction code, and that deduction code would then be approved, and once that is approved, they would then have access to the system to sort of load any loans and so on that employees might have with them. So even in their contracts, having the code in the contracts, in the loan contract, for example, it would state directly that the deduction for this loan would be deducted through that recipient's or that consumer's payroll through that specific code.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So now let me go to that document just quickly.
Okay.
So government says the challenges with this system at the moment. They say from an administrative perspective, the issue of the deduction code is not challenging, as the available checklist is used as a guide. However, once a deduction code is issued by the Ministry of Finance, the only other role of the ministries on the ministry's end
Yeah.
is the collection on behalf of the deduction code holders
Yes.
of the premiums directly from the staff members' salary.
Yes.
They went on to talk about this makes it extremely difficult to ensure that the total charges for the issuance of loans to government staff employees or staff members, as outlined in the guidelines, are being followed. They spoke about currently, despite the agreement or the agreed total cost of granting loans being indicated as not exceeding the prime rate plus 2% per annum, micro lenders are charging total cost in the range of 38 to 48% of the total loan, and these extra charges are incorporated into the cost of borrowing through indirect charges. The lack of monitoring and evaluation mechanisms may have exacerbated this aspect.
Yeah.
One last line, it says, on the housing loans, despite the provided rate of prime, the licensed banking institutions are charging prime plus 1%. Essentially, of course, it's a very complex subject for me, but it sounds as if they are saying that there's no proper control of how much loans and whatnot employees of government can take on. They want a system where, I suppose, they approve and say, oh, this is within your affordability, or this is beyond it, and therefore we cannot approve. I don't understand it too well, but if you have any reaction to what they are saying here.
Sure. Okay, from my, should I say, not so significant knowledge about such technologies, there are capabilities within the technology for the, you have the recipient and then you have sort of the administrator, which is now government, payroll department. So the administrator has access to certain controls within the system. And I think like many systems, there are ERP systems and many systems that businesses uses. There should be a reporting mechanism. There should be like what they call business intelligence mechanism to report, okay, this is how much is going off from this specific employee or from this specific service provider and so on. So the detail in terms of every transaction should be available readily. The other one, in terms of the controls, I know that there is by law the 35% take-home pay cap that is put, that sort of stipulates that employees' deductions must not go beyond that 35% threshold, and or otherwise $1,200. Now that said, all those controls to maneuver should be in place with the system. So controlling the system, or at least having sufficient control in terms of determining what service providers should or should not do in terms of whether it's interest rate or so, the system should allow that to happen. Whether the system had it or not, that I don't know. But from my general knowledge in terms of payroll deduction management systems, they have sufficient control mechanisms for the administrator to apply. And I know through research, when this came up, like in South Africa, there was also such an issue. In many of the other countries, there were similar issues with regards to payroll deduction management. And through those cases, I could pick up in that Yeah. In many cases, the control is there.
Yeah.
The control is at the administrator's side. And the administrator can even go to the extent to say that if you offer any of your products to our employees, you must offer it at this specific rate,
Yeah.
or we won't accept.
Yeah.
The administrator has that control. They could negotiate better terms for employees when it comes to through the payroll deduction management system.
Yeah.
Whether that was applied or whether that was known or not known, I don't know. Whether that was specifically in that system, I don't have any knowledge of that.
Yeah.
But I know from my general knowledge that there are those controls, that there should be those controls in place for government to have sort of that leeway to negotiate on behalf of employees for better terms and so on. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Look, like in marriages, not only in marriages, relationships, in the families, women, they tend to abuse men emotionally by depriving them, let me say depriving them their rights as husbands. You find out that they speak bad words, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they punish men in different ways. And in this, and as this go on, a man makes comes up with some solution, and in that way, that's how they tend to go out of the way of the context, and they end up committing domestic violence. They end up committing crime of domestic violence.
Yeah.
And now when the law is coming, we'll not actually point at what caused it, what pushed the men to go into that, to do that. They just point at the result.
Yeah.
Yeah. As a man, it's your duty also to guard your character, to guard yourself, not to act the other way around. Even if you are being provoked, even if you are being abused in a different way, you need to come up with amicable measures to solve problems. But that's how men get it wrong in the society.
Yeah. I hope I'm not misunderstanding you, Prophet, because the thing is, I don't want, I hope you are not justifying to say that what men do to women
it's right,
is justified because they were provoked, and therefore that is their most natural reaction to I hope you're not saying that.
Yeah, no, I'm not justifying that. That's what I'm saying. As a man, you have to guard your character, not to act in a way that when you feel like you're provoked, that's why you do this, you know. But I'm just saying that we need to teach our women, especially when women are being released for marriages. In the society, when we are raising up our women, we need to teach them how to handle men. We need to teach them how to respect men. We need to teach them how to deal with marriages, you know, so that they don't break their houses indirectly. See, that's what is needed to be. That's the angle I want the government and the organizations that are dealing with the mental health issue right now to tackle on.
Yeah.
That approach. If we use that approach on different ways, I think we will find a solution to domestic violences.
Yeah. What I know, Mr. Ngodikwa, is that when you get married, there are natural routines that you embark on, such as marriage counseling.
Yeah.
I know people who spend many months here at Diabra in Windhoek, outside Windhoek, several weeks going there to be taught how to handle spouses. Because the thing is, you have boyfriend and girlfriend, never really lived together, except for short weekend special moments.
Yeah.
And then the person goes back, and then, but the moment you start cohabitating now as a married couple, obviously the dynamics change, because it's not going to be cute all the time. There will be moments when your spouse is not as attractive as they used to be, because now you wake up in the same bed, you you smell each other's breath, and all those kind of things.
Obviously, yeah.
And the food, maybe you used to buy takeaways or eat out. Now suddenly you have to eat your wife's food and she can't cook, and you're annoyed by her cooking or whatever. But that is those things are already happening.
Yeah, exactly.
I just feel that maybe there are other things. So let's move away from marriage for a moment. Let's just look at, because you spoke about, for example, the regulations being too feminine. I don't know what you mean by that.
Yeah, you know, when you're talking about being feminist, this is how say we need to do justice to men and the boy child.
Yeah.
So you find out, okay, I don't want to ponder on marriage mostly, because we are dealing, not just dealing on marriages, we're dealing with general issue that is happening in the society. You look at, for example, divorce law, marriage law. When a man divorce or wife and man divorce, there are laws that like you are obliged to comply with.
Yeah.
For example, you'll be ordered to pay spousal maintenance, and most of the time you find out that it's a man that do that. It's mostly directing to a man. Spousal maintenance, you'll be maintaining your spouse while you are not together. You can be forced out to go outside the house, and you'll be like, you are the one to pay maintenance for your spouse, your ex. Actually, in actual effect, if you were to have like a partner who's not, you are not married, and you break up, are you obliged to maintain that ex? No, you can't. What you need to do is to maintain your children. If there are children involved, children are innocent. They need to be. That's why I'm saying most of the laws now, they are becoming feminine. Feminist. And the society is more pointing on men without knowing that the boy child is being pressured. The boy child is being, everything is just pointing on the boy child. This is why they end up in suicide state and all that mental breakdowns.
Yeah.